Well, welcome to 2020. It's a new year. I'm Daryl Burling from Master New Testament Greek, and in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how do we improve your Greek this year. It's the beginning of a new year, and even though it may not be by the time you're watching this, but it's the beginning of a new year. So how do you make significant progress in learning Greek and wherever you are in Greek in 1 year? That's the question we're going to answer in this video. The first thing we're going to do is to just simply take stock of where you're starting from. Now, it could be that you're a beginner, you've never learned Greek before. It could be that you're refreshing Greek, maybe you're a little rusty, or maybe that you've been working through and maybe you do exegesis quite a lot. And so as a result of that, you want to just take it to the next level. No more picking your way through the words. You actually want to be able to read the text of the New Testament. So how do you do that? Well, we start with the beginning point. Where are you right now? What do you need to get to where you want to get to? And here's the big question, and this is the difficult piece. How much progress is it possible to make this year? So the first thing to do is to figure that out. Now, you want your answer to that question to be reasonably difficult, right? You don't want it to be too easy because then you won't put the effort into it that it's going to take. But you don't want it to be too hard because then it will be overwhelming. So you want to pick a goal that is not overly difficult, but is going to be a challenge. Okay, so here's the thing. If you're looking at beginning Greek, maybe you've never learnt Greek, then you probably want to set your goal for maybe being able to get through intermediate Greek and maybe read some of the epistles of John by the end of the year. Because it's only going to take you 6 to 7 months to go through beginning Greek, then a few weeks, maybe 4 months to go through intermediate Greek, and then there's some vocabulary work, and you should be reading at the end of that. But that would be roughly how long it would take to get to, you'd be able to read through the epistles of John at the end of the year. If you're a refreshing Greek, you don't need to take as long in beginning Greek. It's a little bit quicker. If you've already done Greek and maybe you're doing exegesis, your goal may actually be to read through maybe 5 books of the Greek New Testament by the end of the year. That may be, in fact, that's probably a little bit too easy as well. Maybe you want to read maybe 10 books of the Greek New Testament by the end of the year. The point here is it needs to be challenging, but not overly challenging and not under challenging. Okay, it needs to be the right level of challenge. So those are just some rough guidelines. Now, another thing that's really important as you think about this is to actually set yourself a goal. So once you've set that goal, give yourself something that will be yours, that you will return to you like as a reward for achieving that goal. How will you reward yourself for getting to that goal? What this does is this gives you something to look forward to for achieving that outcome. And if you continue to just put that in front of you all the time, it's going to be a bit of a carrot, if you like, that's just going to help you keep going. Now, I don't think you should pick something too large here. Like, again, maybe $200, something like that. It's up to you, right? Maybe a new computer. I don't know. But the point here is that it needs to be something you can look forward to, but also something you can put off until the end, right? So it's not something that you're going to be thinking, well, I need a new computer. I'm going to wait until the end of that might just be too long, right? So something you can put off until the end of the year. I suggest something like a nice Greek New Testament, maybe something leather bound or something like that will be a reward and also an encouragement that you can look forward to at the end of that task. The second thing you want to do as you work through this is really just to start to break that goal down. Now, if it's beginning Greek or intermediate Greek, this is a task that you need to achieve. So what are the key tasks you're going to need to achieve to get to that goal? If you're starting from scratch, you're going to have to take beginning Greek. If you're refreshing Greek, you're going to need some way to refresh your Greek. If you're wanting to go beyond that, you're going to need some vocabulary acquisition method. So this is a task you're going to need to work through to figure out one of these steps. There may be other steps that you need to take alongside of that as well. So just make a list of all the steps you're going to have to take to get from where you are now to that end goal by the end of the year. The next thing you want to do is to break those down. When are you going to do them? Put them into months. So maybe if you're learning Greek from scratch, you want to give yourself maybe 6 months to learn biblical Greek. So months 1 through 6, just write those, learn Greek, biblical Greek, beginning Greek, whatever it is. And then maybe the next 3 months, intermediate Greek, and then maybe the next 3 months vocabulary. And at that stage, you can look at setting a goal more specifically for that section. If you're a little further down the track, then maybe you want to spend 3 to 4 months going through refreshing Greek, and maybe you want to spend some more time then working through vocabulary. Maybe give yourself a goal of learning a certain number of vocabulary words each month. It's going to help you get to that end goal of being able to read the New Testament fluently. So whatever it is, break it into chunks, and that way it gives you a bit of a plan for the year that you can then then start to work through. Now this brings us to the practical getting all of this into place piece of this. And what I recommend that you do is that each month you set yourself a recurring appointment, or maybe a calendar task to set a recurring appointment, a task, to-do list item that's going to remind you at the beginning of the month to sit down and do this. But you're going to actually have to do this. And at each month, at the beginning of each of those months, set yourself a goal for the end of the month. And then at the beginning of each week, you want to review that goal. So what do I need to do this month? And what am I going to do on a week by week basis? Again, if you just break it down like that and just set yourself bit by bit goals, and also review what went wrong last month. I didn't make my goal last month, or what could I do better, or what did work last month that I can replicate this month. And so by just continually month by month working through, this is going to give you some real simple and practical ways of really working through this year so that you can make some serious progress. It's also possibly going to be that you're going to have to make some specific changes to your life. Now, to do something like Greek, it is reasonably difficult. It's not impossible, but it is reasonably difficult. And so what I want to encourage you to do is to ask yourself, what changes do I need to make? Now, here's a couple that you might want to do. You may need to get up early. Maybe not every day, but maybe 5 days a week. Get up 1 hour earlier, go to bed 1 hour earlier the night before, and you'll be able to then spend that extra hour early in the morning working on your Greek. Maybe do your devotional time first and then get into Greek for an hour afterwards. Whatever it is, set aside regular time and be consistent and specific about planning that time and making it happen. But there's going to be some lifestyle changes like that that may be necessary. The other thing we want to talk about is some resources. If you're starting on this, if you're going down this track, you're going to want to use some resources that can be helpful and will really guide you through this process. The first one is you're going to need, if you're at the beginning Greek stage, you're going to need a beginning Greek grammar. Now, there are two that I recommend. The first one is Bill Mounce's Basics of Biblical Greek, the 4th edition. This is the 4th edition. It was released just last year, so it's pretty recent. It's got some important updates in it, and so this is pretty much a default go-to beginning Greek grammar. There are some other promising grammars coming out this year, and I'll talk about those as we go through the year, but this is still pretty much the go-to grammar for a lot of colleges and seminaries. And of course, you'll want to get the workbook that goes with this. This workbook, it's got a couple of different options within it in terms of how to go through it, but this workbook, again, will just give you the exercises that you need on a day-by-day basis to go through and really learn the language. So that's the first thing, the workbook and the grammar. These are worth having if you're looking at beginning Greek. The second Greek grammar I recommend for beginners is this one by Richard Gibson and Constantine Campbell. Now, you can see this is much smaller, much thinner than Mounce's workbook. In fact, it's thinner than Mounce's workbook, not only his grammar, but also his workbook. And this is the whole grammar. Now, the reason for that is this takes on a slightly different approach to learning biblical Greek. Mounce uses the traditional grammar translate method. This uses more of a prepare and practice kind of approach where it just works a little bit differently, okay? So you're sort of working through things in a different way. So this is a little simpler. It's also a little more nuanced in terms of things like verbal aspect and things like that. And so this is also a good Greek grammar to start with. Now, this also has a workbook, again, very small, very thin, much thinner than Mounce's, but this is well worth considering as a beginning Greek grammar as well. So that's the two for beginning Greek. Now, those ones are both available right now. There are some others, as I mentioned, coming out later this year, and I will talk about those as we get to them. If you're at the beginning Greek stage, that's what you want. If you're at the intermediate Greek stage, then you're going to need something a little more advanced. Now, this is going to depend a little bit on your background in Greek. Now, here's two that I recommend. The first one is this one, Going Deeper with New Testament Greek. This is a fairly up-to-date, fairly modern intermediate Greek grammar. And you can simply read through this. It also comes with exercises. It's got vocabulary in it. So it's kind of designed to be a kind of an all-in-one intermediate Greek grammar. And this is pretty good if you're interested in reviewing what you've already learned. Now, the reason this is particularly good as a refreshing course is because if you've already done intermediate Intermediate Greek, you probably went through Wallace's Greek Grammar Beyond the Basics. And what this does is this gives you much of that same content, but at a much simpler kind of level. It's very similar in emphasis to Mounce and to Wallace, has much of the same approach, but it's a little more concise. And so this is a well worthwhile book to consider for Intermediate Greek. However, the one that I tend to go to, and the one that we've built the Master New Testament Greek Intermediate Greek course on, is this one by Mathewson and Emick. Now this is by far my favorite Intermediate Greek grammar, and so this is great for refreshing your Greek. And I've talked a little bit about this before, but there's two real benefits of this particular grammar. The first one is that it's very up to date. It takes verbal aspect very seriously, and it doesn't mess around with lots of categories and things like that. So this is a simplified approach to the grammar, which I think for Intermediate Greek just makes Greek much more understandable. So that's really the benefit of this. And of course, it's shorter. It doesn't have the vocabulary in it that you get in going deeper, but if you pair this with something like Master New Testament Greek, the Student Edition, this is a fantastic resource. Now that brings me to the last thing. If you're already past those, or if you read those, the last thing you're going to want is going to be some sort of vocabulary guide. And so that's where something like the Master New Testament Greek Student Edition or the Master New Testament Greek Mastery Membership will really give you some benefits. This is an approach to learning the vocabulary of the New Testament book by book, and this gives you a huge advantage. So a lot of people work on occurrence based, and this approach allows you to master one book of the New Testament at a time, from one book to the next, starting from the easiest going all the way to the more difficult. Now, the other thing is worth mentioning with this is that if you're going to be learning Greek, one of the most challenging things is having a community of people who are on the same path. Now, there are some Facebook groups out there and things like that, and you can go join those. But I also want to give a plug here for the Mastery Membership, the Master New Testament Greek Mastery Membership, which is designed to provide you with a community of people, but also a load of resources, including an Intermediate Greek course based on this grammar, beginning Greek course based on Mounce, and a number of other things as well, including all the vocabulary and a number of lessons as you go through. You learn some vocabulary and you go through and get an Intermediate Greek lesson for just 5 or 10 minutes each week as you learn the vocabulary, and it gives you that guided reading path as well. So that's a great way to ensure that you're not left alone while you're trying to master Greek throughout this year. So that's it. That's how you can learn and take your Greek significantly forward over the next 12 months. You need to have, first of all, a plan, and with that plan you need the right resources, and then you just need to make sure that you're taking the right steps on a week-by-week basis. Now, if you're interested in Master New Testament Greek, the Mastery Membership I talked about before, with the community, the intermediate and beginning Greek courses and all those kind of things, then I encourage you to go to masterntgreek.com/membership, and there you will find access to all of the details. It will tell you all about the program, what you get, how much it costs, all that kind of thing. When you're there, you can also opt in to my mailing list, and that will give you the roadmap to mastery, which is designed to give you a path from wherever you are right now all the way to full fluency. So if this video is helpful to you, go ahead, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Until then, keep taking small steps toward mastery, and I'll see you then.